Hey everybody, this is Perch. Here's it's a mail that isn't about the culture war. It's amazing. Anyway, I notice these things come in waves. By the way, when there's some kind of inciting event, either somebody's having a big feud online. Although I don't get too much of that. I'll be honest. I kind of just pass over all the mails that are like, "What do you think about?" It's the trifecta of Eric July, EVS slash CG, and iconic comics. And what do you think about drama between two of those three or three out of those three? I just don't go in with those mails. I I know it's interesting on Twitter. I don't care. My answer is a very unsatisfactory answer. Let them all make comics. Make comics. If they're all making comics, then good deal. It's like, what do you think of the quality of those comics? That's a different question. If the quality is bad, don't buy it. But I like channel energy into making comics. That's my answer to that. Otherwise, you're wasting your time if you're like. And I always feel in the mail that people are like, "Ooh, let's get Perch to respond to this, and then we're gonna run over. We're gonna tell one of those three. Perch is talking about you, and there'll be some drama." It always feels a little bit too much like shit stirring than any kind of legitimate question. I don't know if you guys mean it that way or that's your intent, but man, that's how it come across. Anyway, make the comics. Put comics out. Happy days. That's all it is. Anyway, let's read this mail. Dear Perch, I'm curious who you think the most underutilized characters in comics are right now. For me, it would be Wolverine. There's a parenthesis here. Yes, Wolverine, a character that has a lot of potential and a proven history of sales within Marvel, and yet they have him relegated to a backup character, even in his own title. Over in DC, I think there's a lot of characters to mention, but Captain Marvel feels like a heavily underutilized character. His comic often seems to focus on the Shazam family, which, yes, is part of the character, but at the cost of Shazam, Captain Marvel himself. What do you think are some of the most underutilized characters in comics, and what would you do to get them more front and center? Enjoy your show. Hope you never in. Okay. Underutilized characters. Well, first off, hey, I'll bet you have some underutilized characters in mind. Go to the comments and like and subscribe. And by the way, here's a word for our sponsor, NordVPN. Do you want to watch porn and your family not know you're doing it? NordVPN. That's what it's there for. Anyway, so yeah, let me know in the comments who you think your underutilized characters are. NordVPN does not sponsor this show. I think they gave up. They're one of the bunch of these groups. Like they'll send mail like, "Hey, would you like to do spots for?" I don't know. No, I want to do one. I'm gonna do one that's more strange and has nothing to do with the show. Like I don't know, bleach, laundry detergent bleach, sponsored by Perch. Do you want to murder somebody and get rid of the evidence? Bleach. It gets your evidence clean. And just see the process, and then I'll do a video on what that process looks like. It might be funny or not. I don't know. Okay. Underutilized characters. Okay, for in DC, I mean, first off, I'm gonna kind of separate underutilized from misused. Underutilized, I think the Teen Titans are pretty underutilized. And you're going to notice the theme when I go over to Marvel here. But, it's funny because they took the Justice League basically off the board for, a year? Roughly a year. And the idea was that the Titans were going to step up and be the team. And we didn't really get that. We didn't get the Titans stepping up. We didn't get any compelling stories. And when I say compelling stories, you may have enjoyed some of those stories. I'm more saying like they didn't create big moments in the larger DC universe. They didn't create viral moments. I don't mean viral like that. Just they didn't. You're not going to be remembering the last year of the Titans 20 years from now. They didn't create. They cleared the board so the Titans could fully step up in the DC universe. And then did they? Like, were there all these stories where the Titans were holding the wall? I don't know. I think the Titans, if you go back to the 70s, and I know that's a long time ago, the Titans actually, when, it was the Titans and the X-Men were kind of this emerging, powerhouses of DC. And it was, there was a lot of pretty cool stories going on. It didn't hurt to have George Perez involved, but you had a buzz around that comic that was pretty powerful. And today, I think one, there's a combination of they can't ever really seem to move on with the team in the same way that the X-Men did. Yes, you had certain members, I mean, Cyclops and Storm and Wolverine as kind of mainstays within the X-Men, but you had people coming and going. You had, Gambit show up, and then you had, as in terms of a big major character, and you had Cable, and you had, this spinoff to X-Force, and you had a lot of different eras of the X-Men and a lot of different characters. It didn't revolve around the same few. And whenever they've done a relaunch reboot of the Titans, it's always like, well, okay, it's the same group that comes back every time. And I like those characters. Like I said, I consider them underutilized, which means I want them used more. But they've got to have something to do that's more significant, that really plays up the superhero team. And I know I use this reference a lot, but if you look at stuff like My Hero Academia, compare it there, they're able to do the, kids becoming men and women, the journey to adulthood, and insert some drama. I mean, a very different feel, My Hero Academia, but still, it shows it can be done. You can have a comic where the characters aren't in perpetual arrested development, and they're actually stepping up and doing impressive things. I think, the other part of the problem is, your most popular character, and I'm not sure that's entirely true, but one of your most popular characters, Nightwing, has his own title, and in his title, they're constantly kind of retooling what he's supposed to be, but not in a particularly interesting way. It's like, he's in Bloodhaven, and now he's rich now, and he's got to clean the streets his way. He's not Batman; he's doing it his way. And there's just something about it that feels, I don't know, repetitive is probably the wrong word, just inconsequential. And the Titans, given their power set, given that in theory they're the number two premier team behind the Justice League, they have the pedigree of a lot of kind of their mentors, and maybe that's part of the problem, by the way, by being kind of the junior Batman, the junior Wonder Woman, the junior Flash, by being kind of these secondary characters, to their mentor, who are the ones that DC is pushing the most. It means that they're always going to be considered lesser than and junior than. But I don't see why that has to be. There's definite stories out there where they could take these characters and basically show them being cooler and smarter and better. And that the idea that you stand on the shoulders of giants and you achieve greater heights. I think that there's just something missing in the tone of that book. It also at times seems to not know what to do with itself. Is it meant to be kind of hardcore superhero drama? Is it meant to be kind of a jokey book? Is it meant to be, ripped from the headlines where it's like the Titans have become Twitch streamers? I mean, it's like what are you exactly trying to do? That latter one, there's just way too much. I don't know, desire to, like, let's make it cool for the kids. So what are the kids into? Oh, they're on social media. Let's do stories about social media. And then let's also do stories about, Wonder Girl wants to be on OnlyFans. And well, they haven't done that one, but there's just you don't need to make it's this approach of kind of writing down to kids where it's like, what kids are into: Minecraft and streaming and influencers. So we're going to have, like, Cyborg is going to rewrite his AI to be Minecraft. It's going to look like Minecraft. People will understand that reference. And then, Gar's going to be an influencer. And then wouldn't that be hilarious? Like, he's just this influencer. Like, anyway. But it leads into, on the Marvel side, the gut reaction for me would be to say the X-Men. But the X-Men aren't underutilized. They're misutilized. That's definitely a unforced error there. By the way, again, a small plug. The Weapon X-Men comic is fucking good. Like, that's a good comic. Just saw issue 4, and it's a good book. I don't know. I enjoy this. I enjoy where they're going. I enjoy some of the subplots that they're trying to set up. I enjoy. There's just elements of this that are just a good comic. It hits the right tones. Marvel's complete lack of advertising, marketing, and attention for it is pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. That's a whole other video when we get there. Anyway, underutilized. So I'm gonna say something very similar. You're gonna again notice a theme, but this one I feel is almost more tragic. So at DC, you have this kind of next generation younger heroes in the Titans, except they've been the next generation younger heroes for 50 years now. If we were aging in real time, or the linear verse, as DC once called it, the Titans would be running around at like 60 years old, 65. Um, but they're still pretty much trapped the same age. Over in Marvel, it's somehow, in an attempt to be better, it's somehow much, much worse. And the underutilized characters are the younger generation, the Avengers Academy, the Young Avengers, the Runaways. There's a case where you have Marvel has put time into creating a lot of new characters, and they seem to every few years bomb it out another team. I mean, there's so many younger characters. And right at this very moment, you got a new Champions book with new characters. You got Gail Simone with some new X-Men over at Uncanny. You've got the Exceptional X-Men with more new X-Men. You have this constant vomit of new characters, and none of them, by and large, again, that one the one douche who is always like, you don't read comics, Perch. Yes, I'm saying this a little bit broadly. Obviously, Miles Morales has a comic. Kamala Khan's doing some dumb fucking thing with the X-Men that Kelly and Lansing are putting out. But the exception proves the rule. The vast majority of characters, and I mean, I'm not exaggerating. There's been well over 200 characters in the last 2 years created for the Marvel Universe, and then largely discarded. The Avengers Hunger Games, uh, that that comic, it wasn't called the Avengers Hunger Games, but that book um, could not have been a more apt kind of meta description of what it's done. In this book, Arcade basically kidnaps a bunch of the younger characters, puts them on a murder island, and then starts killing them off in a blatant ripoff of Battle Royale. And it is, it is, should have called it Avengers Assassination, because it was basically what happened to a lot of these characters. Not just assassinated literally, but just from a character development standpoint. If you think DC has problems with kind of characters in Arrested Development, it's infinitely worse for this group. They're stuck as children. They get a very small handful of issues. Marvel immediately loses interest, grabs up another team, throws that out into the mix. And yeah, every now and then one of these characters shows up, like the daughter of Taskmaster is here. And it's like, but you're blowing off tons of good character development, good art, good stories, interesting powers by and large. I mean, you've got a lot of interesting things. It pains me to say it, but Dan Slott's time on the books, like, he actually put in some work. Shocking, I know, and had some good characters that came out of it. I mean, the entire storyline in kind of the original comics of Academy were great. I think, you can't, and maybe part of the problem here is you want to rush, or the people involved try and rush these things from, here's a new character, to now the character is gets their own solo title and can carry an entire book and a crossover on their back and everything. And you can't go there. There's steps in the middle, but you should absolutely, as you're reforming the Avengers team. I mean, right now, the Jed McKay Avengers team, you're telling me you can't have one of those characters, of the 100 characters been created there? Which one of the young Avengers should be showing up there? One of them should. Yeah, you have like Hazmat that appears in Captain Marvel before it was canceled, but like that's not, you can't, don't just bring these characters as weird little sidekicks in the books. They need, they need growth and development. Just like a very long time ago, you had Justice and Firestar over in Perez's Avengers with Busiak. I mean, it's funny. It's Kurt Busiek's Avengers, but you remember it as Perez because these guys such a god. Um, I think that's to me. Um, there's so many characters there, and no, I'm not going to name them all. And that's not some kind of flex. If you can, the actually it proves a little bit of the point. They're all just out there, somewhat nameless and forgotten. And so, underutilized, almost every new character Marvel has created for the last 10 to 15 years are underutilized. I've complained about this one before, but Hulkling and Wiccan, you have these two characters, they're part of the Young Avengers. You make one a Space King, and you get you have the characters, you'll get married, you do a heavy push of pride issues and Marvel voices and LGBTQ stuff, and you call that a priority. You take these characters who had interesting power sets, legacy characters, connected to the Scarlet Witch, and then you marry them off, and then promptly it's like poof, gone. I mean, gone from stories, gone from people's minds. They did a Infinite comic where the two had options of having different lovers, and that was a story for some reason. And it's like, you why? Why? I guess how could we forget that Kelly Thompson West Coast Avengers, where Kate Bishop led the team? I think only because was that during the time when Kate Bishop showed up in the Hawkeye series on Disney Plus. It feels like that was the only reason that happened. But it was filled with other, and including even newer, again, new characters for the first time that we've never seen again. Terrible. Anyway, to me, that's the underutilized group. The Titans in DC, 150 forgotten characters from Marvel. I'll do, yes, just to make you happy, I'll do a video and just kind of name off each of these. But anyway, thanks for listening.